GM, GA, GE, wherever you may be. It's been a pretty busy week in NFTs, and Yuga Land is looming, and other NFTs are pumping. We're here to discuss that for you today. On Monday, we said, hopefully we have some good news. Hopefully the market's reacting well from the weekend with Moonbirds. And I think since we said those words, Moonbirds are up another 50%. So on the Moonbird front, seems like it's been a pretty nice week, but everything else has been going well. So what are your thoughts initially on this week in NFTs?
It's been absolute insanity. This is the craziest week that I've ever been a part of, in my year and a quarter in NFTs. This Moonbirds run that we're seeing is just so unprecedented. Like, not enough can even be said about it. And there's no way to set price targets, predictions for this set. Throw it all out the window. We've never been here before. None of us have any idea what's going to happen, but it's been a hell of a ride, and it's been a ton of fun. I've been glued to the sales bot for the last 5 days. Haven't gone outside. I'm the disheveled character in the meme of what did my parents do at age 30? Like, let's build a house and have a family. Then the disheveled kid, me at 30, what's the Moonbirds for? Like, that's been me all week. But I think that the pleasant surprise is this seems to be a positive event for the rest of the NFT space. So like we thought it might do, the money is starting to rotate over. And I think I don't have the weekly board up in front of me, but I think most of the projects are up in the green on the 7 days. So it's been a big week for everyone.
And we'll come to this a little later, but just as an initial point, there was the looks rewards that happened this week, and Coinbase NFT chatter when their private beta opened. I actually just got an email to be added to that, so I'll probably be playing around in Coinbase NFT, see what type of stuff they have to offer. But I don't think either of those two things actually were the reason why the market is what it is. So let's bring this up a little bit. So we have the project rankings up right now, and obviously Moonbirds still far and away number one on the week. They're almost at 100,000 in volume, and that just reminds me of a note earlier. One of the posts I actually did the other day, I think it was yesterday. We've been adding posts for our site as sort of this stream of information on Lucky Trader. It'll be easy for you when you come to luckytrader.com to see basically just what's going on in NFTs and a quick little blurbs of each. And one of them that I noted yesterday was all time for Bored Apes has surpassed 500,000. That happened yesterday. And it's crazy to see that Moonbirds in literally less than a week is able to get 20% of that volume.
Yeah, I mean, first, huge congrats to Bored Ape Yacht Club. 500,000 ETH traded is a crazy milestone that none of us would have predicted. But taking it back to Moonbirds, it feels like we are on like a hyper accelerated like project arc right now. Like that's how I'm thinking about the situation. Like I was looking back, I think it took Azuki 2 months to get to 100,000 ETH traded around that, and Moonbirds is going to get there in a week, right? Yeah. And so it took Bored Apes a year to get to 500,000. How long is it going to take Moonbirds to get there? And I don't want to set predictions, but I mean, if it keeps this pace up, it's going to be a lot faster than a year. Certainly a lot of unknowns still out there. But I mean, they're already 13th all-time volume. They've been around for 5 days. It's just totally absurd.
Yeah, and just as another sort of data point to compare to, that's basically $1.5 billion for OpenSea trading, and CryptoPunks are at about 625,000 all time, around $2 billion. So CryptoPunks obviously didn't have that much movement, before this year, or well, I should say last year in 2021. It's not like they had this massive lead going into 2021. A lot of that happened. CryptoPunks started moving a little bit. Bored Apes then minted. CryptoPunks were way ahead for a while, but that's just as a comparison. I think we could see that number flip, the Bored Apes all-time sales over CryptoPunks not too far away here, especially if, say, Yuga Land, which we'll talk about as well today, comes out in the short term. So anything else on this list that sort of pops out to you? I know we talked a little about the Murakami flowers. A lot of that was from the first day after the whitelist opened. Is there anything else of major note on here that you wanted to touch on?
Just again, kind of reiterating surprise that both MAYC and BAYC are up on the week. I mean, Bored Apes are sitting at 123 right now. I certainly thought that they are at risk of diminishing returns. I thought a lot of those owners might look to sell, to rotate down in the Moonbirds. Just to be totally blunt, they're not. And it's been really impressive to me. And I think it's definitely cementing the fact that they're number one and they are the alpha. I think the other maybe three quick items on this page here. So Galverse at 3,300 ETH in their first debut week, they dipped on reveal, but they're marching back up. So I think that's been a really positive sign for anyone who's still in that community, or for those who are kind of looking for promising new projects on the lower end. I think that's one to check out. The Akitar Mint Pass ripped, right? I guess we talked about them on Monday, but this Mint Pass 3x or more ahead of finally that we get the mint tomorrow. And then Cool Cats, kind of a nice surprise. I was in the camp that I thought Cool Cats were dead. It seems
game started working again.
Yeah, the game's been working. People seem to enjoy it. I've seen a lot more growing chatter of kind of the bull case for Cool Cats tied to Cooltopia. So I've been happy to see it. So I think those are some of my other just immediate takeaways from the week.
Yeah, and the other one for me on this list was sort of VFriends is still sitting around 1 ETH. There's a lot of supply still left to come on that, but it's been holding around that one sort of the whole time, even with the issues they've had with it. And then one thing that, going back to a point I made earlier about the looks rare rewards, so they have now implemented, if you have the top 25 of that given day, the last 24 hours, you can earn these rewards. And as you're showing here on the screen, you have Moonbirds obviously are number one, and they have a point system set up which gets paid out once a day. But I think it's created some pressure on other projects that maybe wouldn't have sat up there as long. There's things like that Crazies one. There's things like now Mems that minted out today. They're already on the top 25 of the last 24 hours. Cool Pets has been sitting on there as well. So what's your initial thought on this looks rare rewards? Because I think there have been people that are looking at this list and they have the sort of upcoming lists, that 26 to 30 range, that I think that's driving some sales to those projects as people see, like Artie. I think that was one yesterday that people started buying into it as it was closer because they then wanted to get the rewards.
I think it's a brilliant move by Looks Rare. So I think some of the immediate feedback or negative feedback against Looks Rare with their reward system is that it just incentivized sellers. But what you really need to incentivize to drive real traffic to your site is listings, specifically in the high-end sets and the hot new sets. Like that's where most of the volume comes on any given day in the NFT space. So it seems like they figured that out, and the reward system kind of set the Looks Rare market on fire yesterday. Like they had significantly more listings than OpenSea on most of the top end sets, which was pretty impressive to see. We'll see if it if they're able to maintain the rewards at these paces. But what they need to do is get more people in the door and listing. And I think once more people realize that if you list and sell on Looks Rare, you get that little bonus looks reward at the end. There's really no reason not to list on both sites. It's only a couple extra clicks. For anyone who's not aware, if you've already listed on OpenSea and you list on Looks, it imports your listing price. So it saves you a step there. I gotta pat this team on the back. They continue to listen to the community. They continue to ship new features. So my hat's off to them. It's been good to see.
Yeah, and one other benefit of selling on Looks Rare is if you sell, then you also get Looks tokens. So it's just adding a lot more in the extra sort of buffer above the price. It's the 150% of that floor price. They bring in the global floor, so between Looks Rare and OpenSea. So they're doing a lot of things, as you mentioned, that I think is stuff that people wanted to see from OpenSea in the past. And maybe this will bring more traffic to Looks Rare longer term. And the rewards itself are definitely got a lot of people looking on this site yesterday and trying to list. So
one quick word of warning. So X2Y2 did a similar rewards program as this, and I chased those rewards and ended up listing within 50% or lower. I think with them you actually got more rewards the closer to the floor you were.
Yeah.
And I ended up selling NFTs that I didn't really want to sell, chasing rewards. So I think that's my only word of warning. Don't lose your valuable NFTs. Chasing the reward system. Just be conscious of that. But it's a fun game. It's fun to kind of log in and see your hourly reward tokens kind of streaming in.
Right. Like if you have, the PFP that you use on Twitter and it's sort of your identity in that sense, like you probably don't want to list it anyway, because, whenever it's listed, someone could buy it. The floors change constantly. So the rewards are also changing constantly. I think at the beginning of the day yesterday, I listed some of the Vayner sports passes. And throughout the day, it slowly was going down the list and the rewards are slowly going down. However, if the price is coming up, then it's more likely it gets sold. So there's a lot of factors involved, of course, but I think it's trending towards what people sort of want to see with this type of thing. So we'll be interesting to see if Coinbase does anything like this, because initially I guess we could go into Coinbase real quick while we're here, but not that many people yet allowed onto the site. And because of that, like, I don't really see a lot of chatter on Twitter. There's not a ton of people using the site. All we're really seeing is they have this comment section that is basically just all people who are trolls who are going in there and writing comments like, why are you listing this? And, obviously some worse things out there as well. But what's your initial reaction of Coinbase launching this, or when they did, and how limited?
Yeah, I gotta say it's a little disappointing to have waited this long for I'll call fairly limited functionality. I mean, it is a beta launch. I mean, right now we're looking at a profile page. There's no way to filter Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, to be able to filter his NFT collection by collection or by project. So I can actually see, like, oh, does he have any Moonbirds? Does he have, which is a pretty fundamental feature. It
also includes all the hidden stuff too.
Yeah, it includes all the hidden stuff. So actually, I was on Brian's page yesterday, and he only had 5 NFTs. So clearly, people are sending him lots of junk NFTs, which now is a part of his profile. And it's clear that the direction Coinbase is going with Coinbase NFT is trying to be a social media site. Like, this is an Instagram page for NFTs. I think that's the easiest way to describe what this is. But now, if someone wants to curate their NFT page like an Instagram page, it's going to require some work, especially for the higher profile folks like him who are going to get spam sent to them on a daily basis now. And we already see all that's starting to come through.
Yeah, and people don't want to really have to manage their listings and then having to make sure that certain ones get refreshed so they come up top or whatever. But yeah, that's sort of what I'm talking about with the comments below. There's not really any sort of filtering done with these, as far as anyone can basically go on and comment. Another way of sort of getting your name out there because you commented on Brian Armstrong's NFT, and so it's going to be interesting. Like I get the idea behind it. I don't think I like the comments thought process. I'd prefer a private version of that where you actually are trying to barter the price of the NFT with someone. That's what I thought they were going to do, but this comment thing I just think is going to be exploited, at least in the short term.
No, you're so spot on. So I think we're like a big problem to solve in the NFT marketplace arena is how to connect potential buyers with sellers. Because right now, if the owner of this NFT doesn't have their Twitter handle or their Discord handle in their profile, there's really no way for you to find them. If you want to, haggle on price or if it's not even listed and you want to make a potential offer, but you don't want to waste your time firing an offer if you have no idea if they're going to accept it. But the private chat would have been great because it would have allowed that to happen behind the scenes. But I mean, this is going to be terrible. So I saw a great tweet today. Like, there's a reason why you can't, post comments on artwork in the Louvre, right? Like, imagine some of the Grail art blocks and XCopy pieces that are just littered with random comments and spam below them. I mean, that muddies it.
That's
right?
what Instagram is right now. If you have an NFT account on Instagram, if you post, this happened with me on the Lucky Trader account. If you post just with a hashtag NFT, you get 8 spam comments, DM for XYZ. And, that's what this is going to turn into if they leave it as is.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate. And then, we talked about limited functionality. So as a trader, collector, I want to be able to click on NFT and on the traits and be able to launch the trait pages. I mean, that's fairly table stakes to me. So not being able to do that is fairly limiting. If we go to a collection page like the Crypto Kitties, I think this actually shows a few other issues. Again, so there's no trait sorting. I mean, that's pretty basic. I forget if Looks Rare had that on the gun or not. This is where they're going to run into problems. And I don't know if this 3.5 ETH is actually on Coinbase or if that's the global revenue. But when they launched with this limited beta set, there's not that many users on the site. There's not that many NFTs on the site. There's going to be no volume. No one's trading. No one's buying and selling. You need a liquid marketplace to get people to come to your marketplace. So they're going to have a real problem to solve to how to get the majority who's already OpenSea native and now starting to get into, Looks Rare based on their incentive program, how they're going to get them over to Coinbase. It's going to be a tall task.
Yeah. And sort of to your point as well, like when I created my account, I can't even find the last real NFT that I had on there. So it's a mess right now, but I mean, it's beta. It's very limited, the amount of people that can be on there. I almost kind of wish if they were going to do it this way, just like you personally right now wouldn't be able to look at this. Like, it would just be the private beta people that are able to see this and provide the feedback. It's almost worse that other people are able to see this and sort of providing feedback in a different way. So now, as you're showing Moonbirds, let's transition back to Moonbirds themselves, because as I mentioned earlier, they've gone from 20 to 30 already just in this week. So what's your thoughts on why there wasn't really much of a pullback? It went back to around 17, 18, but I don't really think it got as far as 15. So why do you think that this volume that we talked about this past weekend has seamlessly continued?
Yeah. So I don't know if it was Tuesday morning or Monday morning when the floor kind of dipped back to 17. Actually there were some prints there at 15, 16. And we all kind of thought, okay, we had fun this weekend. It's time to kind of come back to earth a little bit. We're thinking maybe it settles 12 to 15 for a bit. And then just the buying waves just kept coming, and they didn't stop. And just the basics of supply and demand, the buy pressure just outweighed the sell pressure for essentially the last 6 days straight. And it seems clear to me that there is outside money that we have never seen before in the NFT space that's driving this. I don't know what percent of the 93,000 ETH that is. I don't know what percent of the 6,500 owners, this is their first NFT that they've purchased. I wish I had that data. I hope that we get that data in the near future in some capacity. But I don't see another possibility because the other project floors are all mostly up, right? So it's not everyone fire selling every other project to fund this. So, which is what we would expect if this was truly a closed loop. In a closed loop, it would require all these other projects to come down to pump this up, especially with the volume we've seen. That's not the case. So it means there has to be money coming in from the outside. I wish the Dune analytics dashboards, they keep failing this week. Maybe too many people aren't looking at them. But we've been doing 120 to 150 million per day. So we're well above that $100 million threshold. So we are in an NFT bull market right now. That is a fact. And it very much seems that Moonbirds was the catalyst for what we're seeing this week.
Yeah. And so, something we haven't really seen before, like I don't know necessarily the stats. I would assume if they do hit 100K in that 7-day period, that week, they would be the first to do so in 1 week. I also kind of assume whatever number they hit at that 7-day mark is going to be a record upon launch. So, congratulations to Moonbirds, the project itself, and obviously if people were lucky enough to mint or bought along the way. But Moonbirds, so far so good over there on that camp. And then let's quickly check on the Proof Collective, as that's held pretty well. It's actually a much higher floor than the day they launched. It dipped. I think the floor was in the 80s on the day the Moonbirds launched, and it's basically 110 right now.
Yeah, so it was in the upper 80s, low 90s. It dropped to 68 right after the Moonbirds met. So it dropped exactly what we thought. And then it bounced back. But I mean, not only is that at 108, it's liquid 108. Like we've seen 2 108 sales today. And as you can see here, for anyone who can zoom in, it's thin to 150. There's only 5 passes under 150. I do wonder if the Moonbirds floor, like how it's going to be capped, compared to the Proof floor. Right now, it actually seems like the Moonbirds action is kind of driving Proof upwards, as people just continue to speculate on, if Moonbird utility is going to be worth this, Proof has to be worth some multiple. And right now it's barely over 3 to 1. So I think they're certainly benefiting there. Just a couple more thoughts, Luke, because you asked me like what's driving Moonbirds. I didn't really fully answer the question. So there's the outside money. And then we saw a wave of people capitulating, and they didn't want to get into Moonbirds, or they're kind of waiting on the sidelines. Then they realized like this thing's not stopping. So I think we saw a lot of people to say, all right, that's it. I'm going in on this thing. And then we're starting to see more and more folks who have continued to be on the sidelines waiting for a dip starting to enter. So I think that's been a big thing driving it. Nesting is coming up. So there was a Moonbird Spaces that started just 30 or 45 minutes ago. I believe they announced that nesting starts tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So I think a big part of this price action has been front-running nesting and what people think will be a massive supply squeeze. I'm not so sure if that's going to happen. I feel like that supply squeeze might have already been front-ran in this market.
Baked in there.
And we've only seen it's 5.7% listed right now. Like that's insanity. Like typically the Azuki BOIC was between 12 and 15%, which is a pretty healthy listing amount.
Yeah.
So that's driving it. And then I want to say a quick alpha leak for those who weren't on that Spaces. They confirmed a governance token for the Moonbirds project on that Spaces. So I don't have any other details besides that. But I think when people hear token, they see what Ape did, and they want to get in. So I think those are a few other factors driving it this week.
Yeah, I think that is pretty solid. Comparatively, and obviously the numbers are a little different, but imposters have somewhat of a similar model of the staking idea. They have, I think, less than 300. They've already started their staking, and very similar with the idea of the squeeze. They only have around like 200 or so right now that are listed. Part of that, and this goes back to the looks conversation, part of that, they were on the looks top 25 yesterday, and people are listing on looks rare. You can't actually buy, it's part of the contract, you can't actually buy if it's staked. So they finally got that figured out. Now there's only 177 of these listed. I think people look at this project, granted it's 10% of the price, and think, once people start doing the staking, that number that are listed go down, the sell pressure goes down, and a lot of these bigger projects have over 10% listed. Some of them have around 20% listed. I think that was Azuki's early problem, was they always had a lot listed. So I think that's just one thing that's sort of benefit when you do this staking nesting mechanism.
And on that note, so that's also what drove Ryan Carson and the Moonbirds team to announce that essentially you can't list while nested for your Moonbird. If you do attempt to list, you're going to be unnested, which was essentially feedback from the imposter situation, and where folks were listing to potentially help impact the market one way or another, knowing that they couldn't sell. So that's what was behind that. The wording on Carson's tweet was not great. So I'm happy he clarified it, but that's kind of where that came from. But Imposters is an interesting one. We know there's a couple airdrops planned coming up, and I still keep coming back to Creeps for this one, and Creeps performed really well. So this is going to be one to watch.
Yeah, I'm staking some Imposters personally. I'm thinking of it a little longer term than in general a lot of projects that I look at, but I'm thinking of it as it's a game that's doable compared to some other games that we see with, like, they're trying to do crazy things, and they have a lot more connections to the gaming with, like, the phase banks as well. But anyway, let's sort of go back to our regularly scheduled program and talk about a big Azuki announcement this week with the Beanz. So we finally found out that the Beanz are actually going to be Beanz, and the price dropped a little bit. It went from like 5.5 down to, I don't think it ever got to 4. It was around 4.3, 4.4, then settled back around 5 ETH. So some people immediately sold, were like, we hate the art. What was your initial take on the Beanz Azuki situation?
So first, can we just talk about how hilarious it is
It's
that
great.
for weeks they've been telling us that these are beans. The product is called the
Beanz.
And then half of NFT Twitter loses their shit and is surprised that these are actually beans that we're getting. But put me in that group. I was also surprised. I think part of it is just like we spent so much time speculating on what it could be. I was in the camp that somewhere down the line we're getting evil Azukis, could be related to that. I think maybe all of us were just trying to come up with these outlandish scenarios when the most likely answer was just right in front of us the whole time. So they are beans. And I was also initially underwhelmed. I didn't hit the panic sell button. Certainly didn't feel great watching the floor fall from 5.7 to like 4.4 or however low it got. But then it rebounded. It got back to 5 overnight the next day, and essentially been kind of holding the line at 5. Since then, we've seen I think a good amount of takes kind of explaining the logic and what they might have up their sleeve here. So I guess kind of breaking down the announcement, they talk about how you can pair your beans with your Azuki. You see some here. They talk about how evolves is in quotes. So I think that's an important part of this, that these beans might actually be like metadata shifting
So you think
or
like how the
evolving.
cool pets are doing it
I do. I think that the hint we got was how they changed the metadata on the pre-reveal image. How it
to the
was
dirt?
that
No.
was the airdrop, the dirt, and then the beans. Right. I think that was a hint. There's more hints in the announcement here about how the beans could evolve. They introduced us to the two characters here,
I
Toshi and
think that
Les.
one with the little ledger is a pretty cute one. Like
The
he's just
ledger's
holding a
catching a
little
lot
ledger,
of
you
hype.
know. Yeah,
That's going to be a coveted trait
yeah.
for sure. And they talk about how beans can communicate with each other. Um, they talk about how they could be a collectible toy. Let's get through the rest of this here. Um, Beans holders get their own access. So while they talk about how you compare them with your Azuki, just owning a bean is fine. It gets you a lot of the same benefits. And then the most important part of the story was kind of buried at the end. It was buried in the Discord announcement. It's kind of buried in the Twitter. They say there's more than meets the eye. They'll be there for those who wish to venture deeper into the Azuki universe. So they kind of hint that you're going to need a bean to kind of get into some of the future stages. So I think that was all interesting. The utility piece was kind of what I kept coming back to, where like if you're going to need these as utility tokens, it kind of doesn't matter what they look like that much.
Yeah.
But then people started posting threads, kind of explaining more of the vision. This one from Jackie Moon was pretty good. I'm gonna try to see if I can get a few highlights from it, or I can just talk to it. So basically, these beans are super memeable, and that's what Zagabond and the Azuki founders are going to do. They wanted very simple art that can be used as stickers, that can be used as memes on Discord, other chat apps, which has seen a lot of popularity. There's threads kind of comparing it to Eastern culture, and some of the characters that have done really well over there. And then, Zagabond came out and said, we're going to meme these beans to death. So that definitely seems a big part of what they're doing. And memes are important, and we see how well they work. So kind of the more I read about that and kind of understood their vision, kind of the more I came around to the beans. So I think they're going to do okay.
If the narrative is true that Eastern culture is what they're going for and trying to bring into NFTs, then yeah, it does have more of that style to it. People have compared it to things like Hello Kitty, which I don't think it necessarily looks like Hello Kitty, but it's more for just the basic art idea to it. And we don't know, like
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that they have on here, those 4 images that they have, we're not sure if that's what you're going to end up getting, like if that makes sense. So it's not like other projects where even the Azuki, like you look at those 2 right there,
Mm-hmm.
they're both facing the same way. Their head is like in the same spot. Maybe part of this beans thing is some of them are jumping in the air doing a kickflip. Other ones are holding the spray cans. Other ones are looking the opposite way. Like maybe they have a lot more involved where once the reveal happens, it's going to be different than other projects. So I think that's something that they're trying to allude at is, it's simple art, but as you mentioned, like memeable and adjustable.
I think the other piece on the adjustable comment is it also unlocks an adjustable core Azuki PFP. So we've already seen it. Most people like to rotate their PFPs out, right? It's fun. We want to show off the hottest new collection or whatnot. And sometimes we're just ready to move on. But imagine, you get a new bean, or you can move your bean around, or your bean has changed, and you can tie that into your PFP. Well, now you just added a little bit more of a dynamic nature to it. which could very well give it more shelf life or longevity. So I think that's also a factor in this, and maybe one that really hasn't been talked about all that much.
Yeah.
And I think will be interesting to follow.
It's almost like what people wanted the space doodles to be, if that makes sense.
It does.
Give us this airdrop. Well, that's sort of the mean way to word it, but provide us this airdrop that we can sell or keep as its own, or combine it with the doodle. Because that's what happened with me is, I got the space doodle and you're somewhat stuck with it because that's always connected to your doodle. Whereas I'd rather, let me pick the space doodle I like, and then you could go buy that off secondary and add it as well. So I think that'll be a really cool feature to this and something that people are looking forward to. We still don't have a date or time on reveal. I've been thinking all week it's going to be tomorrow. I'm not sure if you have an opinion on there, but it does seem like Azuki's been running a little today. There's a big sweep earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it's going to happen tomorrow, this weekend at all?
I don't. I've kind of given up hope on trying to time it and predict when the beans are going to reveal. But what I will say is this soft reveal was brilliant in that the early market reactions are already out. So, like, we saw panic selling when they did the soft reveal, right? Hopefully that got most of the panic selling out of the way early, right? So when they do actually reveal the entire 20,000 set, people will have more idea of what to expect. So I think that was another part of the announcement that was smart. I mean, this is a perfect weekend to launch. The markets are as liquid as ever. If I'm any big project, I'm going to try to launch this weekend if I can. I mean, it is the perfect time. The only potential conflict is if a huge announcement comes from Yuga, and I know we're going to get there down the line. Maybe you want to dance around that and maybe not go the same day. But I mean, we've got people who are selling Moonbirds for 30 ETH every single minute right now, and they're going to want to find something to spend that on. And there's a lot of people who are priced out now, who probably can't chase Moonbirds anymore and are looking for that, the next hot one to go after. So the time is right.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we're paying attention to. And once again, another transition on the day. I think that puts us right into Yuga information, because basically, oh man, it's crazy how the market can move sometimes. And there was just this tweet who, I don't know, had 5,000 followers at the time of the tweet. He obviously gained a bunch of followers after because of how far it kind of ran. But basically, Renegade Master Gucci by YC.eth tweeted out that has some sources basically saying there's going to be a Dutch auction for the Yuga Labs ape token, 600 ape it's going to start at. The problem here is they also added the airdrop for MAYC, BAYC, not the Kennel Club, but also some auto whitelists for those other projects that were in the trailer. And then we saw a couple other posts that had that piece of it. The 608 part to it started a run on Ape Token, went from was it $12 to, I think it got up to 17. Yeah, in the 17s. It's now back to around that 15 number. But you can see those green. It just went crazy. You could tell exactly when this guy tweeted. It's right there before that massive green mark up. So, what was your take? Do you think that this has a lot to it? Do you think they're going to have this Dutch auction at 600? Do you think parts of this is true, other parts aren't?
Yeah, so there's a lot to break down from this alpha post. So again, for everyone watching, listening, none of this is confirmed. This is just a total rumor. I don't buy this. I will be shocked if this is actually correct, what we're seeing on the page here. So let's start with the price. 600 ape. I mean, that's $9,000 right now, roughly 3 ETH. I think they will get flooded to death selling 100,000, or take away the 30,000 airdrop, 70,000 plots of land for 3 ETH each, and doing a 210,000 ETH raise. That's a shocking number. We saw the demand that Moonbirds had. Moonbirds just did a 22,000 ETH raise, and that got funded, at 2.5. So they're going to do a 7x raise on that for virtual land. When Punk 6529 just launched an open metaverse that's free to enter, I think there's going to be a ton of pushback at that price point, and I think it will be. Could it sell out at 3 ETH? Sure, but as a trader, I don't see a whole lot of upside on 70,000 plots of land that cost 3 ETH to enter. I mean, what's your best target ROI there? 2x? It seems fairly risky. So I'm not buying that, as the sale price there.
Yeah. I have, I'll sort of give my take on it, and then some other cool ideas that I heard about it. My initial take was, I don't necessarily think it's the best idea for them to do the sale solely in ape, because then what happens with all of that ape, if it's at 600 specifically, and they're going to have 100,000 of this, that's a lot of ape that then is held by the team. I don't know if that's necessarily good or not. I heard a take that maybe part of the VC raise will then give you ape from this land raise. So I've heard that side of it as well. But my take on the number 600 ape, I bet that was a number that was said when ape was a certain price. Now that ape has gone up, say it's 200 or $20 for a token of ape, then I don't think they're going to do this at 600. I almost think they have a target number in the ETH equivalent. And at that time that this guy heard about it, it was 600 ape. Now it's up 25, 30%. I don't think they're necessarily going to do that. So maybe their target number was 2 ETH. Originally in the deck that came out, it said 1 ETH. Maybe it was off of 1 ETH, but that would only be around like $5 ape. So maybe he heard of this a little while ago and is expecting it to come out soon, so he wanted to break the news in a way. I'm not sure, but also I haven't seen anything from Bored Ape denying this, and in the past they've been quick to deny rumors like this when they pop up. So what's your thought on the fact that Bored Ape hasn't really denied this either yet?
That's interesting. I actually hadn't thought about that. Part of me just thinks we're not going to, as that Bored Apes Yacht Club Yuga just isn't going to interact with all these rumors, because this isn't the only one. Like, there was several more of these alpha leaks. So I guess that one didn't really cross my mind as a huge factor. I think it will be done in ape. I will be very surprised if land sales not in ape, just because that's what they told us, right? And the thing was powered by ape, and that ape was the currency of the economy they're building. So this feels like another like Beanz situation, where everyone's overthinking the situation based on the information given to us. That's also why I think, we were given this leaked deck, and again, we don't know if that deck is actually true or not, but it said 1 ETH, and it said conservatively, because I did reread it today. But man, jumping from 1 to 3 just seems so high. And I think they'll catch a lot of flack if they do that.
And we're also saying 3 at the $15 number. That's why my thought is they're going to adjust that starting number based on current price, current ETH.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is once they announce this, that's another thought that I had, is like, they can't just announce this the next day. I feel like they have some sort of, we're going to announce this 3 days from now, a week from now. I think people will have that time sort of to prepare. But, if 600 ETH at $20, now we're talking closer to 4 ETH. So that's where, like, on my take is they're going to adjust that before fully announcing it. That the 600 number, I don't think is the hard and fast number. I think what you mentioned. And my other thought with this is the airdrop auto whitelist stuff makes sense to me. I think that part of this tweet could be right. Like it lines up with the trailer. But I think the ape part is probably right. The Dutch auction part is probably right. My thought is the 600 is the number that's going to change. I'm not sure, but there's a lot in this tweet to look at. And do you think they're still going to do this as a Dutch auction? And if so, will they do the sort of a correct Dutch auction that we say like people pay off of that final number, even if they went in early?
So there's actually tons of incentive to use the proper Dutch auction because it incentivizes early firing.
Yeah.
Right, because it locks you into your spot, and then you know that you've paid your peak price. So I could absolutely see that. On the auto whitelist, I'm polar opposite of you. I think there's no way that punks, meebits, cool cats, nouns, world of women, and toads are going to be auto whitelisted.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like that doesn't make sense to me. It's already like exclusionary to just pull in those 6 random sets. And yes, they feel random to me. They were in the teaser video, and that's the only reason that these 6 sets are in this tweet right now. My interpretation of that video from Yuga was an example of the future of all the other different projects that you'll be able to use as PFPs in Yuga. It's absurd to think these 6 are going to be the only ones whitelisted. Now, punks and meebits, yes. We haven't seen the punks and meebs getting any utility from the Yuga acquisition yet. So I could absolutely see them getting some benefit here. So that makes sense to me. But like if you do the math on all these auto whitelists, so punks is 10,000, meebits is 20,000, cats is so that's 40,000. World of Women's 10, that's 50,000. Toads is 69. So that's 57,000. Nouns is like a couple hundred.
Right.
So
it's already over half.
This 87,000.
Yeah.
So we'd be left with a 10% public sale. That also feels off to me. So like the math doesn't add up. So I'm calling BS on.
The whole point is for them expanding the ecosystem. So I don't really understand why there even would be a whitelist. I guess just to limit gas fees. But the other part of this is the prices of all these are way different. Like you can't give punks and meebits the same thing when one is 60 ETH and the other one's 5 ETH. So it's just there's so many pieces to that part that I agree with you. I would think they'd do something for punks and meebits because they haven't yet, but that's part of that acquisition. But cool cats have basically come out and said they haven't been bought out and we don't have the connection. So it to me, like I think I am on your side as far as the auto whitelist part of this, but I guess we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, there's one more on this topic. The reason that these products use the whitelist is to create demand. It gives you an NFT community who you know is a buyer and player in the space. Yuga has demand. They don't need that. So that to me, that's the nail in the coffin. But let's talk a little bit about the market reaction. We haven't talked about that. Yeah. So other than punks and nouns, kind of nouns are in their own class. The rest of these ran on the news, right? So the coin ran up. Toads jumped almost 100%. Like they got past 4 at one point. Meebits got over 6. I think World of Women actually probably moved the least. I think they're
they did
in the
get.
7s.
It might be because World of Women are a higher price point, but they've been around in the top 25 on Looks Rare in for the past day. So I think they got a decent amount of volume, but the floor itself didn't really push very high. They might have been low 7s and now they're high 7s. So like, yeah, I agree with you on that. Like it seems like Toads, and I don't know what's your thought there. My thought is because it was the cheapest entry point.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why Toads ran. I've got a quick comment for the CCO maxis out there. Toads is the iconic CCO product. Toads and MFers at this point, probably.
Or nouns, you could argue.
Along with nouns. Nouns kind of started it all. But if the only reason your project floor moves because of utility announcements from utility-based projects, to me that just pokes the hole, right, in the CCL logic. And that's absolutely the case with what's happened in Toads in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
It moved on the first leak of the trailer, right, when Toads were included, and then it doubled on this most recent rumor about the land sale. So the market wants utility. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that at this point. But shout out, a great week for the Toads owners. Don't want to rain on their parade. 4 has been kind of their recent threshold, so I'll be curious if they're able to really get above that and stay up there. Would be happy for them. I got to come back to World of Women. Should World of Women owners be concerned here? This is a crazy bull market week, and I had to scroll down pretty far to find World of Women in a big announcement week for them here. Only 800 ETH traded. The floor only popped 1%.
Yeah,
it's not great.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point because I don't want to say I was ever like a World of Women maxi or anything, but I held them for a while. The thesis of being like the elite women-led project in the space had a lot of Gary V backing. I think until we get concrete information that say Yuga bought them out or is invested in them, I think people are holding, waiting for that perhaps. Not sure if that's should be the case or is the case, but yeah, because they're one of the projects that I tracked on my Lose Blues article, and they the last couple this is higher than the last couple of weeks, but barely. I don't remember the last time they were over 1,000. Probably the week leading up to Galaxy was the last time they were over 1,000 ETH traded. So I think they just always kind of are a little lagged with that. People that hold them just want to hold them maybe. But yeah, that's a good point. Like you'd think they're part of this rumor too. Cool Cats also had the game involved. They pushed a little, but I mean, Cool Cats are still around that 8 ETH floor. So maybe people just are seeing through this rumor, kind of like we were just talking about, and think either that's already priced in or why spend 8 ETH if that just means I'm still going to have to pay another 3 ETH to buy the actual land. So I think it's a little of both.
Then lastly, so should BAKC owners be revolting or rioting based on this
They're
announcement?
higher than World of Women somehow.
By a good amount.
I keep waiting for those kennel dogs to drop to like 5 ETH. I'm like, I'd buy it 5, and they never fall too far. They keep just not getting given anything too.
I think they're ratioed to MAYC at this point at somewhere between
the third
3 to 4. It seems like they're a little below a third, but that feels right. And they get the bonus staking in most of the staking proposals that we've seen. But I mean, back to this announcement, like the dogs don't even get a whitelist spot. Like I don't think BAKC gets an airdrop. I'll definitely come out and say that. I think BAYC gets an airdrop. I've seen like the founders plots being thrown around. That logic makes sense to me. Then AYC maybe gets a different tier of plot, and then everyone else, like public sales. I could definitely see 3 tiers of plots, right? That all is logical to me, but not even giving the dog owners a whitelist spot when you're giving nouns, that doesn't make sense.
I think one thing we agree on is there's holes to that tweet. So I think the one thing that people sort of agreed upon is Ape is going to be needed and it's going to happen soon. We have 2 days from now. Saturday is going to be the 1 year anniversary of the first minted Bored Ape. I think there's going to be a lot surrounding that. People have that date in mind for either an announcement or anything along those lines. Because some people point to the day they sold out, but in my mind, it's the day you launch that you should go off of, not the day that Pranksy bought 1,000 of them. So what's your thought on that before we talk about a couple upcoming here? Like, do you think we're going to see something on Ape 1 year anniversary day?
I do. So I think a part of the reason the market spiked here on the 19th was tied to that announcement, but also because we thought a 420 announcement was coming. And then you see Ape was high all day on 420, figuratively. And then I think by 6 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock, people realized, okay, no announcement's coming, and it sold off. I think I was surprised. I actually thought 420 was a little disappointing. All we really got was Coinbase, right? I expected more. I expected some stealth drops. It was actually fairly quiet.
Yeah, I mean, we got a couple
get an
stealth drops, I guess, technically, but none that like did well.
Okay. But I'll be shocked if we don't get an announcement on the 23rd. I think all eyes are on the 23rd. I could definitely see some creep in the Ape price on Friday, ahead of the 23rd there. I don't think it's going to be Yuga tomorrow. Like, to your point, another rumor is the Yuga land sale is going to be done on Coinbase. And I can actually see, like, that actually does make sense to me. It would be a great way for Coinbase to get a lot of new users and drive revenue. So I could see that, but if that's the situation, people need time. I could see an announcement on Saturday that Yuga land is 430.
Wouldn't it have to be out of private beta even at that point? That was the thing to me, like the Coinbase coming out with private beta as they did. I don't know. It's kind of been weird in general, but yeah, I think that'll be good to watch. And then there's a couple other projects that we wanted to touch on before we headed out, but upcoming stuff, because outside of this, like, once we get that announcement, there's going to be a lot of liquidity going towards it. No matter how it works out, either it'll go to ApeCoin, it'll go to just buying the land itself, or when Beanz reveal, when Monolith reveals, all that sort of stuff. So what's your thought on Akitar? We've talked about this a little bit. They are going to be doing the rest of the airdrop. Is it going to hurt these other projects that are coming out? Anata, I believe, is currently doing their Dutch auction. So what's your thoughts on some of these upcoming projects?
Yeah, we've got the Akitar Dutch auction for the remaining supply tomorrow. I think that's going to be a big event, especially if there's no other announcements. With how well the Mint Pass has been doing, the art looks cool. Everyone, the artist, the team behind it seem to have pretty universally positive sentiment. So I think that's going to be the big one. That's going to be the big new project of the week. I've got mixed emotions on Anata. I definitely think Akitar is going to steal a lot of Anata's thunders. I imagine that the auction at Anata running, it ends near the Akitar minting window. So there's going to be some potential conflict there. So I could definitely see them being impacted. I don't think the top end of the board here is going to be too impacted from these new drops. I continue to think the primary theme of this bull cycle is consolidation into the blue chips. And I think we're going to continue to see them separate themselves from the low tier projects. I think what will be interesting is, can Akitar make that jump? Is Akitar ready to go from 3 ETH to where it's already being priced at on secondary? Is it going to be able to make the jump to 7 to 10? I think certainly some early backers think that's the case. Yeah. But we've talked about Monolith for a month straight. They're in the final quest. If Monolith reveals this weekend, it will be the primary liquidity event of everything, of all the new stuff.
Assuming nothing happens with Board 8, but you're saying above
correct.
Beanz?
Yeah. So if Yuga Land comes out, based on what we know, right? So if Yuga Land comes out, it's the number one, and it probably even passes the Moonbirds volume. If Beanz reveals, Beanz versus Monolith is really interesting. It's kind of because now you've got Clone X in the mix. It's Clone X and Monolith versus Azuki and Beanz, which those two are kind of neck and neck for me, like in that kind of bubbling the top 5. So that would be interesting. A lot depends on how innovative and how cool this monolith reveal is, and if it can live up to 2.5 months of hype. And there's
if it
been
gets just
a lot of
super
hype,
flooded,
but the price keeps marching up. It's around
people
8.
aren't listing. I looked at one point the other day, and there was literally 2 listed. 2. I was like, why is this all of a sudden a 9th floor? And it's because like all of the 6th WETH offers got taken, and then like the one that was at 7 listed. And people are taking the offers instead of listing. It's a little weird. It's like keeping the floor a little higher. But yeah, I think depending on the reveal, I think Beanz and Monolith are sort of competing with each other right now. There's less supply to Monolith, but depending on how that reveal goes, there's always fudders. Depends on how heavy the fudders are in that battle. But I agree with you. And so far, Anata is at 0.25. There's 24 hours, so there's plenty of time. But the current bid is 0.25. So
I like it there. Below 0.5, I like Anata a lot. Like,
my
back
guess
in my head,
it'll run later.
I thought it was going to go 1 to 2, 3 weeks ago, and I don't like it in that range as much. But if it kind of sneaks in under the radar and people can get in there with 0.3, I think it's definitely an interesting shot because it's low supply, right? It's like 2,000.
Yeah. And secondary thought on Accutar, what I've been telling people, personally, I would rather have one of his chapters than an Accutar. I think you don't really get a rare lotto except for aesthetics in here because of how they have it tiered already, and the best rarest ones you already know which ones those are, and there's 256 of the OG is what they're called. It has like a floor of 20 ETH, so you can't buy a floor and potentially hit the rarest one. So I think that's one reason I'm not buying into it at this price. But who knows if this auction side to it comes out and it's 1 ETH or below, I could be interested. But at 3 ETH, it seems a little too steep for me.
No, I think that's such a good detail to share. I think it's a lot of people who are just buying in probably don't know that essentially there's different tiers to these mint passes based on the NFTs owned ahead of time, ahead of those snapshots. So if you're buying the floor, you do not get the rare lotto, and that is absolutely one of the factors that inflates floors and why we typically see a dip on reveal because the rare lotto is priced in. So just be conscious of that. If you're buying in, you are buying into the bottom tier.
Yeah,
PFP.
And Heman is saying he's talking about the utility plays. And a couple of comments from him. He's talking about the chapters, and he likes the art behind the Accu chapters. And to me, that's another reason why I prefer those, because he has mentioned the chapters will continue to have utility to them. And we don't know. I would assume they have better type of utility than these 15,000 avatars are going to have. So that to me is why I think I still would prefer just buying a chapter, because look at what you got if you had a chapter before. You get a free 3 ETH airdrop that you can now either sit and watch to see what it turns out to look like, or you can sell it off for 3 ETH. And it seems like there's going to be more stuff like that involved. We already know he's doing something with Vayner Sports. So to me, that's where I still lean with the chapters.
I think that's super sharp. The alpha, the OG Genesis NFTs always perform the best.
Yeah.
It's essentially proven in the market at this point. So I think that's a really sharp tip.
Yeah. Cool. So it should be an exciting weekend. I think depending on which of these things reveal, which of these things get announced, if there's further information on Yuga, at the least they're gonna post something, maybe like a 1 year like memoriam type of video. Like there's gonna be a ton of content out there on Saturday, and obviously ape holders are going to do their whole like 1 year type of thing. But yeah, to me, I think there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening right now, and people are. You had mentioned earlier, you think that we're in this bull cycle again, and I think just the vibes are a lot more positive right now. There's a lot less just random why did this project move as there was a few months ago. So it's more legit projects are coming across and more info on them. So I think that's part of the reason why the market's in somewhat of a better place right now. It's a lot more mature. So yeah, we'll make sure we keep watching all this stuff and be back here on Monday and talk about what's coming up next week. We might just get more information and hard facts and talk about some of the same stuff again. But yeah, next week we'll be back on Monday. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on Monday.